In the sky, the engines roar. On the ground, the wheels explore. From the cockpit to the open road, stories of the brave unfold. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. From the highways to the flight path, through the storms we'll share a laugh. Tales of courage, dreams in flight, guiding you through day and night. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. In the heart of every journey there's a story to be told. With the wind beneath our wings we'll watch the world unfold. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. So tune in, take a ride. Let's explore the world wide. With torque and thrust, we'll go far. Chasing dreams among the stars.
Good morning and happy Wednesday. For those of you that are new, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, welcome back to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, episode number 31, the Big 01. My name is Bill, and I've been an airline pilot for the past 7.5 years. I have 5 FAA type ratings and currently fly the Boeing 737 for a major U.S. airline. Now, our journey with the Torque and Thrust Talk Show began a year ago. We premiered October 5th, 2023, which was episode number 1, Welcome to Our World. Now, just prior to that, in the May of 2022, I had revamped and restarted my TikTok page at Captain Bill Official in hopes to spread good information about my career and what it's like to be an airline pilot, because realistically, at that time, I had very limited accounts with that sort of information. Fast forward to about a month later, I've got enough viewers and followers on TikTok to start doing small live sessions. And in that live, there was a very consistent, a very lively, very engaged viewer called Level Flight Simulations. Now, after a couple of live sessions chatting with Level Flight Simulations, he messaged me on TikTok and said, "Hey, I'm a flight simmer. Would you mind going to my YouTube channel? And I have these tutorials about SIDS and stars, and I just posted one about a Miami SID and how to read the chart. Would you please review that and let me know what you think? And little did we know at the time, but that was the glimmer of what has become one of the most, I guess, productive and I don't know how better put it, one of the best relationships I've had in my adult life. That person is someone you all know as Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. Now, from there, we started talking about what we wanted to do with our content creation and how we wanted to improve our content, which led to us doing our first shared flight deck experience using the PMDG 737 on Microsoft Flight Simulator. From there, we were able to use that as a platform to not only entertain you, but to answer the questions while entertaining you about being an airline pilot and the aviation industry. Now, unfortunately, shortly after that, other content creators in the same genre caught on to that and were able to produce similar content, which kind of destroyed our uniqueness on that platform. But then, shortly after in that summer, Tommy and I started focusing more on other content other than Microsoft Flight Simulator and started playing American Truck Simulator, which is where we got into contact with Justin, aka Wise Ass Trucker. Let's completely honest, he was just like us, very smart, very intelligent, and knew a lot about the trucking industry. And that's where the idea for the Torque and Thrust podcast was born. I reached out to the both of them and I said, hey, I want to do this podcast. And I made sure I came up with a pretty cool name to begin with so I could draw them in and said, what do you guys think? And they said, let's do it. So that is where my co-host, fellow co-founder of the Three Green Simulations group, retired NYC EMT and flight sim extraordinaire Tommy D comes from. So first, before we start off the show, Tommy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. I'm good. I'm kind of excited and kind of nostalgic all at the same time.
It
You know?
is, and I have a treat for you all. I put together a small highlight video of starting from episode number 1, going through some of the episodes and kind of the important things that have happened over the past year. Tom and I kind of got a sneak peek in the pre-show, but it's a little nostalgic. We've come a long way from where we started with episode
Oh,
number 1.
yeah. From not even that, we've come a long way from those first couple of TikTok lives, when you'd be on,
Hmm.
and you think back of all the things. But
Yeah.
I
Well, and
digress.
on this show, it's going to be not your normal format that you're used to, where we do aviation news, jargon, and jiffy. This is just a celebration of 1 year doing one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most successful podcasts I've ever done, and probably the most meaningful too. Tommy and I are going to talk about after this highlight video. We're going to talk about what we really enjoyed about producing the show, our favorite episodes, as well as the downsides, the stuff that we didn't necessarily enjoy, and also the most maybe least favorite episode that we had or produced for whatever reason. And then the big chunk of this is we're just gonna have an open discussion to talk about what we want to see in the show come January 2025 when the show comes back in 2025. Tommy and I have ideas, and this could be a sounding board. Also, we'll have the live chat up if anybody has any suggestions, or if you feel like suggesting us in our off time what you'd like to see on the show, you could reach out to us at levelflightsimulations@gmail.com or captainbillofficial@gmail.com to offer us suggestions. But with
And that forever free Discord.
Yep, and that forever free, absolutely. That Discord, Three Green Simulations group is absolutely free. You can also drop suggestions in there as well. But without further ado, let's take a look back to a year ago, October 5th, 2023, where the first episode of the Torque and Thrust talk show first premiered. Welcome, dreamers, gamers, transportation enthusiasts alike. I am Bill, and I am super excited to welcome you to the Torque and Thrust talk show podcast, episode number 1. Welcome to our world.
All right, so like Bill said, my name is Justin. I am a professional driver.
To the episode number 2 of the Torque and Thrust talk show. Is it out of this world, or are we just out of our mind?
I am a retired New York City EMT. 32 years, I was a first responder.
I have to say. Justin?
My first week back from vacation.
Justin, I think you're muted.
Ah,
Yeah, hold on. We'll go back. Hold on.
good
Go.
morning. Welcome to another great edition of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. I'm Justin.
Let's talk about mental health care in the aviation industry. Like I said, this is the time to be selfish. Think about you, right? You're more important. The world's a better place when you're in it, not your paycheck.
Well,
And
to me, that's
I
when
was,
the Christmas season starts.
but why though? Like, did someone tell you that? Is it like, did your Christmas tree go up at that time?
No,
'Cause like I
my
said,
family's Christmas tree went up after the Rockefeller Center tree was lit. So it would be like the first weekend in December. We would
Yeah.
put the tree up and decorate the house for Christmas.
Uh-huh.
You know, and the Christmas season itself, starting at noon on Thanksgiving Day, was always my personal interpretation of it.
But
You know,
where do you, I'm trying to dig deeper, Tommy. I'm trying to dig in that brain of yours. Where did that come from, thus? So, as you guys have probably noticed, Justin's not here with us. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to weigh it, but last night, Justin messaged our group kind of abruptly and said, I quote, "In a decision I weighed heavily, I won't be participating in the show going forward. Regards, Justin." The past couple weeks, he hasn't been available. He said he was handling stuff at home, which we completely understand. Tom and I told him to take as much time as he needed to. We could handle the show while he was handling things at home. And then just abruptly, a little under 12 hours ago, or a little over 12 hours ago, he messaged us that, then proceeded to leave all group chats, unfollowed Tommy and I on every form of social media. I don't want to say he's ignoring our messages, but we have sent him messages to make sure everything is okay with him. He has seen the messages but hasn't responded to us, so I'm really sure what is going on. But it's safe to say that we probably won't see Justin in the future on this talk show. So with that, buddy, I hope everything is going well, Justin, and good luck on your future endeavors. Cool. So that will now transition to us to another controversial topic on the Torque and Thrust talk show. We are talking about one of the most controversial topics amongst adults, mind you. This isn't even kids, adults. We're talking about Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas movie. And realistically, the controversial topic is it a Christmas or is it a Halloween movie? Because we're in the black. So, the first recorded use of the term Black Friday was applied not to post-Thanksgiving, but actually to a financial crisis, specifically the crash of the U.S. gold market on September 24th, 1869.
Lucia, do you know why you're here?
Bad luck, I guess.
Body of the Boeing fans. PMDG's 777-200, and as you can see there, it is on the top of the screen.
The discussion topic is Be Christmas Around the World because the episode is called 'Tis the Season. So Tommy and I are going to be talking about our family traditions that we've had for Christmas, and then we're going to talk about a couple of different things from around the world. I have an article that talks about different traditions from around the world that are pretty actual interesting. There's some interesting ones that I was reading. So Teddy Roosevelt was an amazing president, right? The square deal, right? If you guys don't know now, I am a history buff, nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. I like history names because it is an alarming trend that I am noticing on social media where they're using their status as like pilots, for example, to charge for like tips and guides and stuff like that for their followers. And I'm gonna be very clear, I am totally against that. I will never charge you for anything related to aviation or career advice. And we're back. Yep, sorry, that was the end. Tommy hadn't seen the end at that point. But that was a look. That was a look back at our career so far. Tommy, thoughts, emotions. I teared up. I got misty there for a little bit. Oh, I can't hear you, Tommy. It might be muted.
I muted. That was me.
Yeah, there we go.
That was a great edit. Thanks for putting the time in on that one. That was great.
Yeah, no problem. And the thing is I wanted, if I could, I would include all the bits and all the different things that were in there. But it was so hard to do that because there was so many, and also to keep it under a relatively short amount of time.
Right. Not to take over the entire show.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just an idea. I mean, we started from episode 1 to where we are today, episode number 31. And it's the reason that I put that highlight together too is also kind of show not only the diversity of the show, but also the evolution of the show from where we started. I mean, we started with, remember our first segment, instead of Career Corner, it was Comment Corner.
Yes,
You
I
remember
do
that?
remember.
So comment corner was basically where we were taking things that like weird comments we were getting from our social media and talking about it. Which when we first talked about, it, I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. But the thing is, we ran out of things quickly because the trollers aren't there too often. It's just every now and then, like Scooter and stuff like that.
Good old
So that
Scooter.
freaking Scooter, and then went to the career corner aspect, which lasted us what, like
20
20
weeks?
episodes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe it
20
was 20.
weeks. With talking about how to become a pilot and a EMT from 0 to hero. And then we switched that to, I believe, a safety stand down is what we're doing now in
Mhm.
replace of that. So you could really see the evolution and the dynamic nature of the show changing to best fit the entertainment bill and also to maintain the way we wanted the stream or the podcast to go. Because I remember telling Tommy when I first met them, or like prop or was it proposed it to you all? I said it's got to be organized. It can't just be us sitting there BSing for an hour and a half. Like it has to be something where people will know that they could come to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show every week and get aviation news, gaming news, automotive news, learn something, and hear a random discussion. Which is another thing. The dynamic nature of our discussions is not just about aviation gaming. We had a variety of discussions over the past year.
Yeah, yeah, we
So
definitely, spanned the gamut with stuff. And then speaking of structure, 'cause I remember I wasn't there for episode 1. I was listening to it, but
yeah,
we
because
were
of
on our way
family
to
emergency.
Georgia.
Hmm.
Um, I remember the Google Doc where
Ah,
right, the
oh
Google
my
Doc,
god.
right?
That
So,
was just
everybody,
a
we when Bill proposed the idea and not scripted, but definitely a structure, like, we had a talk show outline, if you will. So
yeah,
Bill created a Google Doc that we shared with Justin and me, and generally by like Tuesday, depending on what day the show was, because we actually had a dynamic date at one point, because it would go back and forth from like Wednesday to Thursday, depending
because
on
of our
everyone's work
schedules.
schedule,
Yeah.
right? And it was always, if we're doing a Wednesday show, it'd be like 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and be like, Justin, you can throw anything in there. And then one day we were talking about it and looking at it when jargon in a jiffy, we used to put our terms up there. I'm like, well, what's the point of jargon in a jiffy if we could see each
If we
other's
know what it
terms?
was. Yep. Yeah, and I
Um,
remember the document was more of an accountability thing for
yeah,
all of us
yeah,
because I remember telling them in the group chat like this isn't going to be a high school project because it was the original idea was mine, but I needed Tommy and I needed Justin to make it work. Because me by myself, not very exciting unless I'm telling stories, which we all know how that narrative podcast went. It went kaput because I didn't have the. It's hard to do a one man show, but I need Tommy and I needed Justin to be able to do this show. But I also made it very clear that I just because I came up with the idea and well, managing the tech side of stuff, it's not going to be a high school project where I'm going to do all the work. Period. I
right,
said you guys got to
right.
pull your own weight with this.
He Bill
And
actually only does 98% of the work.
yeah, 98%, but I still needed each one of them to do at least 1% of the work. And so that's where the document came from. It wasn't one, it was for organization. So one, I wanted to be able to, if Tommy was going to talk about a certain game on the show, then I wanted to be able to look up that game too. So when we go into the discussion bits, I don't sound like a complete idiot not knowing anything about the game. Right. So that's what it was for. It was just more so we could keep informed on what everybody was talking about. And yeah, I think, I mean, we all had our moments because I remember there was one time I was sitting in pre show. I had the doc up on my screen and I could see Tommy because on Google Docs, you can see each other's
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Tommy's typing away an hour before the show. And I'm like, I remember typing in there because Tommy can see me typing. I'm like, hey, Tommy, what are you doing? Because I was
Yeah.
like, dude, I can see you. And all, I mean, we're working adults. Like Tommy works literally the graveyard shift, especially during that time. Justin, same thing. We were all busy, so I understood. But I think Justin was the worst in terms of waiting until the
Oh, that
last
was like
minute.
a weekly thing.
Yeah,
I
just
remember, so I would sit
like what do you?
there at work and I would just wait for you to say something.
It's
Like,
like, are
I
you gonna put
literally would
something in
put
the
the Google
doc?
Doc up at work and just be like, "Yeah, Bill will be saying something in the next 10, 15 minutes."
Yes,
You
like
know?
come on,
And, like, it
work with
actually
well,
became a joking point.
Yeah. Well, and largely because it's so that way we could also give each other pointers. Like if I put up an
Yep.
article that either one of them said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't do that," or and our big thing is too is research. We're big on research and making sure that we're not spreading misinformation, that we're giving accurate
Hmm.
accounts and research information. So there was a couple times both ways where they said, "Hey, I don't think we have enough information to run with that yet." I say, "Okay, you're right. Let me go find another article." Or like, what I would say to like Tommy or Justin, "Hey, this seems more like a opinion piece than a factual piece. Is there data? No. Okay, well then let's put a pin in it, get more data, and then we can talk about it on a later episode."
Yeah, because
Um,
and then a lot of things came like that, especially when it came to when safety stand down came.
yep,
Um,
and
because
just
everyone wanted, like the natural reaction is to go to everything that is super recent.
mhm.
But like, the FAA and the NTSB hasn't written one paragraph yet of factual investigative information.
Right, because we're waiting.
And
We're
it's
still
like, yeah,
waiting.
we can't talk. We
Hmm.
could tell you what we think, but that's literally all it
That's
was,
all we can do.
just what we think.
Yep. And so and that's where that doc comes from. And it was kind of the bane of our existence because it was necessary for the podcast. You're talking about three separate hosts who are not this isn't our primary job. We're also at different parts of the country. Justin was in the Northeast. Tommy is technically in the Northeast, right? Pennsylvania's
Yeah,
Northeast.
Northeast.
I'm in the Midwest. So you're talking about getting three guys that literally don't live anywhere near each other onto a so that's what it was just kind of a way of organizing. And the one benefit, and we'll kind of go into it when we're talking about the low side or the parts of the show that we didn't like, um of losing a host, is then it became a little bit easier. And then Tommy and I we don't really do a doc anymore. It's just kind of we meet before and say, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And if there's an
Yeah, and then
article
just go.
involved, yeah, and if there's an article involved, Tommy usually sends it to me before the show so I can read it. So it's a little bit simpler that way. But with that being said, that's a good transition. Let's talk about the what you like most about the show. Like what in terms of producing, Tommy, what was it that made you get up? Because there were some early mornings back when we were doing it at 9 a.m. in the morning where you
Yeah.
had just gotten off the night shift at like 4 a.m. What was it about the show that got you up to the computer and helped me produce the show? What was
There,
it about the show?
there's actually a couple of different reasons why.
Mhm.
One, we get to hang out.
Yep.
Right. It's always more enjoyable when someone that you know is your friend is there. And for those of you who don't know, it was, I forget how long ago it was, but Bill and I actually went out to lunch together down in Harrisburg. We hung
That had to
out
been like
for,
a year ago.
oh, yeah, it was like we hung out for almost 4 hours, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like I drove down while he was on. We had a blast too. By the way,
Mhm.
if you're ever in Harrisburg, and I'm not paid to say this, McGrath's got an awesome garlic bread.
Oh
That
my
garlic,
god,
oh man,
that beer cheese garlic bread.
oh,
Oh my god, that was
divine.
good.
So
Mhm.
that's the first reason, just solely for the fact we get to hang out, we get to do something fun, we get to do something that's not gaming. The other thing was the challenge of actually doing it because I've never done anything like this. So like even when Bill when you had said something, I was like, all right, well, I'm in. Absolutely. But I'm gonna like I have no clue what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have to like, kind of point. And then, it's structured, not scripted. Uh, and really, like, to me, I always saw it as just an outline,
Yeah.
but,
Mhm.
uh, so those were the 2, and then, alright, I the early mornings, we'll talk about that in a little while, but,
Yeah. So, yeah,
uh,
because my
just watching
favorite
it
things,
evolve and being part of something that is evolving.
yes, it's not
There's a
stagnant. Yeah.
million and one podcasts and talk shows out there, but it ain't ours.
Correct.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think my favorite, so overall, what I've really enjoyed about the podcast is and Tommy knows this, when we're on TikTok, we're limited to trends. A shout out to the sirens every single episode. Every single
Every
episode they've
time,
been in
even
there.
when we were gaming. Oh, man, that
Yeah.
power qual is annoying.
Yeah. But my favorite thing is having a platform where we could talk about what we wanted. With TikTok, you're kind of stuck in the trends and the algorithm. If you're not doing what the latest dance, the latest trend, you're kind of lost to the wayside. Or if
Mhm.
there's a bigger, better channel, which Tommy and I found out, we were growing popularity very quickly when we started doing shared flight deck Q&A lives. Not only because they were chaotic, like our very first shared flight deck was a
Oh,
nightmare
geez, yeah.
coming out of LA.
Was an amazing test flight the day before that. We had not one
No
issue.
issue, no issue. But the problem is there was a bigger a TikToker that kind of caught on to what we were doing and threw a lot of money at a similar setup and completely sucked us dry of our viewership. So, and once again, algorithm, right? So that's what I really appreciate about this podcast is no matter what, we have a platform to talk about what we want to, and that's why I included those in the highlights when we talked about like the gray matter and all the important stuff we really wanted to talk about. We could say it here. Um, in addition to hanging out, because that's Tommy. Like right now, this is how Tommy and I really the only time of the week other than texting each other where we have time to sit down and talk because we've been so
Mhm.
busy. Um, the other thing I really enjoyed about producing the show is the names. So I think I've mentioned it before. I'm the one that was coming up with the names for the the episodes, whether it regardless of who was coming up with the discussion topic. Because Tommy came up with discussion topics, Justin did, I did, but I was the one that came up with the names, and I always loved the wordplay because I don't just want to sit there and be like, we're talking about big business or my favorite episode, the gray matter. We're talking about pilot mental health. I didn't want to put pilot mental health on there. I wanted something that was uh, intelligent, right?
Mhm.
Something that was like the gray matter. Well, we're talking about a gray area when it comes to mental health and aviation and pilots, but gray matter is also what makes up your brain. Ta-da! That was my one of my favorite parts about the show in terms of producing it was coming up with the names because to me I like clever names. And maybe not intelligent. That was tooting my own horn. Clever is what I meant to say. Clever names. So something that can people are like, "Oh yeah, what is that?" Or like the all-time ranking episode is episode number 14, Antitrust. Antitrust is
What a
talking
great
about
episode.
the blocked trade or blocked merger between JetBlue and Spirit, but we went into a lot of the history about Teddy Roosevelt and the like antitrust laws that are in place. And I don't know what drew so many people to it. I wonder if it was antitrust, like if the name for some reason, excuse my dog back there, um, for some reason drew people in. If that was why, but that's why you never see different things or like name titles that are just like this is what we're talking about today because I just want to draw you in. I want you to see the title and go and then come in. So I think that was one of my probably my favorite parts. But let's talk about the part that nobody wants to hear. Tommy, what if you had to look back over the past year, what has been your most or least enjoyable moment or maybe episode or certain thing about production that you didn't necessarily like? So this is like behind the scenes stuff that almost nobody ever knows. They kind of see both sides of kind of the coin here
Right, right.
with producing a podcast.
Um, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't enjoy the 2 hours sleep and then having to go live. I
And
did
then have a
not
whole
enjoy that at
educational
all, and
discussion.
yeah, and one of the things is, for those of you who don't know, we do have a pre-show discussion. We're generally on, like, a half
Yeah.
hour before we actually start the live counter, right? And Bill there would be days Bill or Justin would be saying something to me, and I would just look at him and be like, Friday?" And, 'cause I'm just tired,
Or
it
not to
then it
mention
doesn't
the
get easier.
time I called you to be like, are you gonna do the
Oh,
show?
yeah, there's been a couple of those too, where Bill would actually call me and be like, "Dude, are you awake?" "Am now. Let me make coffee. See you in a few minutes."
And I'm like, all
You
right,
know?
let's get started.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and then, just roll. That was rough. Um, Sometimes the writer's block is not always my favorite.
it's yeah.
Bill's like, "Hey, I'm doing ABC." And it's not that we bust into each other's personal lives. It's just like two friends. Like, how often do you call your friend? Hey, what are you doing today? I gotta go to the grocery store, this, that, and the other thing. Well, it's the same thing. It's just via text 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, can you drop an idea?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem." Like an hour later, wow, this is gonna be a problem. Because it's just
Or
like,
or like an hour later, Tommy goes, "Let's talk about our favorite food."
yeah, yeah, like, you start grasping at
And I'm
that
like,
straw.
"It took you how many hours to come up with your favorite?" And then
Yeah,
I hate doing it. I'm like, "Tommy, I just," and part of it is because I don't wanna just I wanna talk about stuff that Tommy wants to talk about too. So it's not fair for me just to be like, "I'm gonna come
yeah.
up with all the discussion topics." So
So
that's why a
they
lot of times I'll put it on his plate and be like, You come up with a discussion topic for
yeah,
this week."
it's not a favorite time, definitely a funny time, though. Like, there is comic relief in there. Episode 7, saying goodbye to Justin, um, because we had actually I wanna say episode 5? We were actually gonna do this live together.
Mhm.
We had started talking because it would like, logistically, it was a big thing, but the pretense of the one-year anniversary show was gonna be literally, like, the 3 of us hanging out in someone's living room
We
and
were
be
gonna
like,
do a live podcast, the 3 of us in
yeah,
the same room. Yeah, mhm, that was the plan
yep,
to meet up
and
in Pennsylvania and do that.
yeah, and that was saying goodbye was rough, but it was I mean, I'll just say it straight out. I wasn't mad. I was concerned the
Yeah.
way I mean, I'm not gonna say I wasn't aggravated, I'm human. I was aggravated at the way the whole thing went down, like, really, dude?
Yeah,
Y
and, that was
but hopefully no ill will at all,
yeah,
you
and the
know?
thing is my low point in terms of production, I think a lot of it was, um I think it was producing in a sense because actually, no. Worst part about producing, bane of my existence, is TikTok Live. Absolutely
Oh,
hated that thing.
Jesus, yeah.
Had so many technical issues with that dang thing. But in terms of low point of the past year, I agree with Tommy. Episode 7, it was I think episode I want to say it happened on episode 5, if I remember correctly.
Uh,
Episode 5 was the first
when you
episode where
said,
it was
"Hey,
just
listen, I need to take a hiatus," yeah, it was 5. Because we were
because
like,
we were
"Yeah, man,
talking
take as
about
much time."
it was weird that because we were talking about mental health.
Mhm.
Well, it's that, and that's why the gray matter was so important because there was a lot of misconceptions floating around, especially social media, about what mental health entailed. And so that was our first, I would say that's our first non kind of silly discussion topic. That was
Mhm.
where we built the platform, we had viewers, and we were ready to get a message out there that we needed to. It was our first serious episode. And the night before, um, I think it was episode 5. I know I said it in episode 7, but I'm pretty sure episode 5, maybe episode 5 is when Justin said that I need to take time for myself. He hadn't
Yeah.
officially left the show yet, which
Yep.
is okay. We all understand that, and going in there I told everybody that this isn't a 9 to 5. If you guys have something to come up, you just got to tell us ahead of time so we're not scrambling in the last 24 hours to be able to do something. That's all I asked is cuz we have family, Justin had family, Justin had kids, or still has kids. I don't know why I'm talking about him in the past tense, but at the time he did. So it's one of those things like I completely understood what was going on. And he said, I need time. Tommy said, no problem, man. We got it covered. Just let us know when you're coming back. And that's more so that way you can get an article set up and we can get you back into the work flow of getting ready for the next episode. We never said, hey, I need you back by this time. Hey, I need you back by this time. Hey, I need you by this time. And I did message Justin weekly to check in and ask him if he was planning on doing the episode that week just to give him the opportunity. I didn't want to exclude him from the workflow
Right.
process if he
Right.
wanted to jump back in, and it wasn't considered. He could have done one episode, take 2 weeks off, then another episode. I was just trying to keep him involved with what we were doing. And then that's right. And then episode 7, I still, yeah, and you could tell kind of in the highlight video, I had extreme mixed feelings about the situation because it was the night before. I think, were we still doing 9 a.m. shows at that time?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Because of
were.
Justin,
We
right?
we were scheduled to do 9 a.m. the next morning.
Because I think we originally did that because of Justin, because his work schedule, he had to start
Yeah,
at
because
10
he would
or
literally
11.
find out where he was going the
Yeah.
morning he was going there. He had to check in with his central dispatch officer or something, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, so we were up. It was like 6:30 the night. So we like that is 8 a.m. my time. So I had to get up pretty early. On top of Tommy getting up pretty, all of us getting up early to be able to do this. And the night before at 6:30, there was it might have been there was nothing in the document. Or I can't remember what spurred the conversation. Actually, it was out of the blue if I remember correctly. Tommy and I were
Yeah,
just in the group chat talking.
I was at work. You and I had just we were texting about something that was, like, not show related.
Yeah, and
I forget what it was, but we were just in the middle of one of our generalized conversations,
yeah,
and
and
then
then
it was
just
about 7 or 8 my time?
yeah,
Somewhere
Justin
around there,
messaged
and
us. Yeah,
yeah,
and
we
said,
started seeing things pop up in Discord.
well, and it was one message. It was,
Yeah.
"Hey guys, I regret to inform you that I'm not moving forward with the show," and or something along those lines. I said it
Yeah,
in
it's
the
almost like
video.
he
I
wrote
can't
a
remember.
resignation.
Yeah, I mean, very polite. Said, "Hey, I'm not moving forward with the show. Regards, Justin." But what happened afterward is what really kind of jarred us because it wasn't like, "Hey guys, I just can't do the show right now. If I'm probably gonna take an extended leave." And I was expecting to keep some sort of like communication open because if Tommy said I needed time, mental health, physical health, whatever, like okay, but I'd still be regularly checking in on him, trying to get him back to the
Mhm.
show. Or even if he wanted to say, "Hey, I just don't want to do the show anymore. It's too stressful. I got too many things on my plate. I can't do it." Cool. Stay apart. Still game with us. American Truck Simulator when you can. But the where it kind of rattled me and Tommy, and where it kind of like Tommy said aggravated because I was aggravated because when it happened, it was less than 12 hours before the early morning show. So now we don't have an automotive segment, right? And so now we're scrambling to figure out how to cover Justin's segment as well as what this means for the show because now the format changed because the format of the original show was around three hosts doing the show. So we're doing that. And then we're also at the same time concerned about Justin because that came out of the blue. And then the next part is what really took us by surprise, where he um, blocked us on all social media,
Yeah.
left the Discord server, removed, and this is the part that was really concerning me is when you go look at his Twitch channel, his TikToks, everything that had to do anything with Tommy and I on there, whether it was tagged, he did a post about the first time we did our episode number 1 of the podcast, it was gone. He
Yeah.
deleted everything having to do with the past 6 months having to do with us as a group. And so Tommy and I were reaching out. It's like, brother, are you okay? Like, what is going on right now? And he wouldn't respond. I mentioned that, he had seen, but he's not responding. He did reply to me on, he sent me something on TikTok, if I remember correctly, a
Yeah,
TikTok
he was
message.
using the DM function on TikTok because
Yeah.
he hit you up, and I think it was, like, a day or 2 later, he hit me up,
Well,
like
the thing is, he hit me up. He goes, dude, why are you airing my dirty laundry on the live? I said, I'm not. I said, brother, I said, I'm not. I am just expressing what happened, and none of it is rude, or I'm explaining why you're not on the show anymore. And so at that point I blocked him because it's felt like he was trying to start drama, which Tommy knows, zero drama. I don't do it.
yeah, we don't
So
deal with it.
we don't deal with it.
Mm-mm.
So I blocked him because I was like, I'm not doing this whole, well, why are you airing my it's like, dude, you up and left us in the middle of the night, left us high and dry with no warning. We weren't pressuring you to come back to the show. You just completely imploded and just screwed two really good friendships in the process. I think that's also probably why I was aggravated, as I felt hurt because the three of us were doing good. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, we were pretty tight. We were gaming. I don't wanna say daily, but it was a few times a week, we'd be hanging
Yeah, it
out
was,
and
and the podcast was going well, so it was just kind of a utter shock and startle effect that that he up and left. And he did post a video on TikTok later on apologizing and saying that he was going to explain what's going on, didn't really explain what's going on. I think he reached out to Tommy because I had him
Mhm.
blocked, asking if he could come back to the Discord server, not as a host or even like a moderator or any of the other things that we had given him, that he had earned, I should say, but that just to be part of the community. And then I think Tommy and I talked about it for a couple days
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty long conversation, like,
because
literally
it's like, do we like on one hand, he's our friend, and if he needs the support system that is the Discord group, yeah, let him back in. But I was also really worried about the amount of drama that he would cause by
Right,
returning.
and I think that's where because we even brought our moderators in now, so,
Yep.
like, "Hey, well, what do you guys think about this?" Because this is where Bill and I's head is at, and there are a good amount of times that people like, guys, Bill and I don't always just roll over and agree with each other on
No.
everything. Like, we actually agree to disagree on much more than what we agree on, but that's
Yeah.
what gives it its dynamic, right? So, we went back and forth, just Bill and I discussing Justin coming back to just the Discord server as a general member. I was against it. I was like, "Yeah, no. No, I don't want it," because right away, I was like, "What kind of nonsense is gonna go on with this?" And then, uh, we brought it up to the moderators, and we got some really, really good moderators in our Discord, like, 0 drama. They know exactly
Hmm.
what to do and how Bill and I had envisioned, because even the Discord, that's like 97% of Bill's work right there is what you see. Like, I had owned the Discord server, but I had no idea what to do with it, and Bill and I were talking about it. And
I
then
pulled an
we
all nighter.
unrolled it. That was another high time in the thing, like,
Yeah,
going
I,
public with
I,
that.
I, I had a couple of Discord servers that I had designed in the past, and that was that was an all nighter I pulled, just like when I pulled the
Yeah.
all nighter for the truck liveries on American Truck Simulator.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
which are awesome.
I Yeah, and I pulled an all nighter because I wanted it to be secure because people's Discord servers get raided all the time and you have to start over. It's a whole thing. But I think that was my primary concern with Justice. I didn't know what his intentions were. He went
Yeah, I
from
was hoping he was alright, like, "Dude, listen, you don't wanna do the show, that's fine. You don't wanna game with us, you don't wanna do ABC with us, that's cool. This is the United States, it's freedom, you can do whatever it is you want, within the legal realm.
right, yeah,
Just let us know you're alright." That's all we're
yeah.
asking. We're just simply saying, "Dude, are you cool?"
Well, and it's dropping the grenade on us, letting it just a scramble for at least a week, and then coming back going, "Hey guys, I'm sorry. Can I come back?" That part, like I said, it didn't sit well with us, so that's why we didn't really allow him
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
in.
that was a
So
little bit of indigestion right there.
yeah, and that was the low point. I will say this year that was absolutely the low point because the origination and genesis of this podcast was with Justin in mind. So that was a huge turning point in the show because it's back to just Tommy and I, which people come especially to Tommy. A lot of our viewers are from Tommy's side of things, but it was one of those things. Okay, but how much are we losing now because of Justin, right? Because we had some viewers on Justin's side that were here because of
Mhm.
Justin. So it's like one of those things like, okay, so now we're kind of back in the corner where now we don't have an automotive slash commercial driver expert anymore to talk about things. Now it's going to be a pilot and an EMT talking about automotive, which I mean, we're motorheads, and I
To
know
a
I
degree,
am.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's worked out, but it was unsure at that time the future of the podcast because I didn't know we really had to change um how we were thinking about
Mhm.
formatting the show,
The
which is
format, and then there was I know we had a couple of days worth of discussions, like, do we wanna have a 3rd host? If
yeah,
we
do we need
do
to go find
decide
somebody
for a
else?
3rd host, be like, who's it gonna be? Because we gelled and clicked as friends prior to the podcast,
Yeah.
and that was pretty organic. Now
Yeah.
it's like,
Do we want to be like, hey, you're the
do we
replacement for the guy that was
yeah, who do
originally
we
supposed
do?
to be
And,
here?
are we gonna be going from, like, 9 a.m. Eastern to, like, 3 in the afternoon Eastern? Because everyone works different schedules and whatnot, and
Yeah.
finally, I believe it was you, who's like, "You know what? Let's just leave it how it is." Like, maybe we
We'll
could have
figure
a
it out.
guest host at one point,
Yeah.
or, someone come in and that type of
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, and that actually transition us perfectly. We talked about the high points, the low points, and now let's talk about the future. What we want to see in the show come January. For those of you that may not know, I've announced it last show. Uh, Tommy and I are taking off winter break. Tommy has a lot going on his side of things in terms of family. I'm about ready to go through upgrade training next month, so it's gonna be absolute chaos. Starting this month. What am I talking about? We're in October.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
have
the
two more
hourglass is
trips.
going, my brother.
Yep, I have two more trips as a first officer, and then I'm going through upgrade training. So back to sipping on a really big fire hose. So we discussed that it's probably best just to kind of take it easy during that time, not worry about the show, and then take the time to get the show ready for January for what we want to see, which we're going to discuss here. Let's talk about the third host thing. That's one thing that I would like to see for our future show. I would probably like to see. I don't know. See, the thing is with the third host, I feel like it has to be organic. I feel like, and then we put it out there. Like, if you want to help us host the show, remember a couple episodes we're like, here's our emails, reach out to us. Um, and nobody did. I don't think nobody reached out to me. But
No,
I
me
also
neither.
felt it's like walking into an interview almost, I feel like, and is seeing if they fit or not. And I don't think that's fair because that's not as organic as one would think. Or the people that would be organic, like some of our moderators, don't feel comfortable coming on the show talking, and so, which is fair. We're not as what Tommy and I do, being on camera and stuff, that's our own personal choice. So that's where it's one of those things. It's like I would like to see maybe some guests, but then once again, it's like, who do we ask? It's a lot of the a lot. I can see Bess. They're back there playing.
Yeah, they're
And
brawling
there's
back there.
my dog. But it's just I would like to see maybe some guest hosts, or maybe like I said, I would like to see a third host that we could maybe start streaming with, and just where it
Hmm.
happens organically, or if just reach out to be like, I want to help you guys with the podcast. And then, like I said, there's not like a mile high requirement list to be on the podcast. Basically, be consistent. If we say we're going to be, in a pre-show an hour prior or 30 minutes prior to show, every Wednesday or whatever we decide, be there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't jump ship on us. Or if you need the time off, let us know ahead of time, but be consistent. Also be willing to research. This isn't necessarily a opinion podcast other than our discussion topics, which don't involve gross misinformation. We talk about whether or not Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas is a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie, which, by the way, we both brought stats for. We turned that into an educated debate.
Oh
But
yeah.
be willing to understand that what you present is not, it has to be factually backed up, because Tommy and I will call you out on it if it's not, because that's
Hmm.
not what this show's about. So if you
No, and
meet
that was
those
like
criteria,
rule one. That
yeah,
was rule one, like in discussion before we even came
I
up
say
with
we
that
can't.
first episode.
Yep, no misinformation.
Yeah,
It has to be factually checked. It has to be correct. So
knock it off.
that's a so that's something that I would like to see, especially, like I said, if there's somebody out there that would love to join a podcast or is interested, or even just doing one or two episodes with us.
Yeah,
Um,
pop in as a guest, say hello. Because you know what? It
yeah,
might not be everybody's cup of coffee.
no, it's not. It's like I said, there is a lot of behind the scenes prep that goes into it. So if you're hardworking and just this is something you're interested in, then yeah, I'd like to see a third person pop up,
Hmm.
because I felt like the three-person dynamic, especially for discussions, I think the three people discussion was huge, because there may have been a yay nay, and then someone else would be like, well, actually, then make us both think like, wait a second, hold on. So it's not just back and forth, you know what I mean? Which is good. Having that third involves more discussion. So
Right, right. Too. Plus, also like that different opinion on something. Because I don't think the three of us ever really were eye to eye 100% on everything. It
on
was
everything,
always
we all had our own opinions that shed light on a
right,
lot of
right
things,
for the
which I really
discussion,
appreciated.
and that's cool. Like to pop in and uh I kind of like the structure of it because at this point, after a year of doing this,
Mhm.
it's just memory. Like I go in and be like,
Yep,
this is
this is
what I
what we're
need to do. This
doing.
is what I'm doing.
That's
This
what
is
we're
what I'm going
doing.
to talk about. Here's the article. Oh, we're talking about what this week? Yeah, let me just
Yeah.
Google that real quick and see. Um, and
Well, in
then
pre-show, Tommy, you were talking about something that you'd like. I told you to boop time out. Wait, save it for the show. In terms of what you wanted to see in the show come 2025.
yeah, and
Remember?
here's what I had. Now we already know we released this last week. Uh, our very first show back in January, right? We're going to do the AI scripted show, right?
Just
I personally think this is going to be more of a comedy skit
it
than
is.
anything
Mhm.
because we do have great senses of humor. We're going to love to see what AI's got to say. The other thing is too a more organic conversation where
Yep.
we could bring in all of the content that we've had, but improve on it, make it more organic, more evenly flowing, more of
Less structure.
a Yeah, a little bit
Hmm.
less structure. We can't go
Yep.
totally structureless because then I think it definitely wouldn't fall apart, but it would
No, but I
definitely start to get a little bit more difficult as far as everything else. We need to know where each other are in the broad spectrum
yeah,
of the talk show, but like a more organic conversation, like,
yeah.
"Hey,
I
what's
think
going
I
on with
think
that,
this.
ball club?"
Yeah,
You
exactly,
know,
and
things like that.
yeah, and or hey Tommy, did you see the new Cybertruck? The
Yeah,
24
right,
Cybertruck.
right.
And then immediately after we vomit off screen. I agree. I think this first year has really helped guide us to what the purpose and basic foundation of our show is.
Yes.
We have a format that we can always come back to if things get a little chaotic. But I 100% agree with you. And I was actually thinking about bringing this up too on this episode, talking about the future. Is one thing I'd like to see, like you said, is a little more organic conversation. So rather going today in aviation news, because let's be honest, I'm not a news anchor, but I like presenting stuff in aviation. So rather than making it so structured, be like, we're gonna do this and this, be like, okay, well, just come up with, we both know aviation, gaming, and automotive, right? Are our main talking points because it's the
Mhm.
Torque and Thrust talk show. Instead of being like aviation, Tommy's doing gaming, this, just make it like more, like you said, more organic. Hey, Tommy, did you see that the XB1 just took its first test flight, supersonic flight out to Hawaii? And then talk about it. Or like I said, did you see the new Cybertruck, the matte black Cybertruck? Talk
Yeah.
about it. And then same, I just make it more of a discussion. It is a talk show, but uh, destructure it a little bit so it's not so rigid. And I can't believe I'm saying that of all people.
The
But
man who
like,
lives
and
his life by a checklist.
yeah, well, and the thing is, like safety stand down, I would like to keep that in there, but instead of me just doing safety stand down and going, Tommy, what do you think? Present it as a, are you familiar with this accident? And then talk about it back
Right,
and forth.
because believe it or not, I actually clean my desk, believe it or not,
I would
and
say it looks crisp.
yeah, the book, the infamous notebook
Oh
desk.
yeah, I still have mine.
I
It's over
actually
there.
do have ideas for safety stand down,
Hmm.
to broaden the horizon of that, like, do still aviation, but, like, I was, you know maybe rotary aircraft, uh,
Yeah, it's
transportation, ground transportation, rail transportation.
yeah, and we can
There are a
just, and it's,
whole
yep. And like I said, that's in the safety stand down. We don't have to. We can just do it where we talk about. We can just bring it up where it's not as structured. With little ticker tape going across,
right,
and the
and then
discussions
also, I would like to see our viewers become part of the conversation, not to where it is,
like a
it turns
TikTok
into a
live.
free-for-all. Yeah, like, it
Yeah, I
turns into
don't.
one of those lives where, it just
Yeah,
goes
that's not a
ballistic,
podcast. That's
but
a TikTok live.
yeah, like, when we ask someone's opinion, that's because we really wanna know your opinion. That's just not, like, a politeness or a thing, like, say, "Hey,
Right.
guys, chime in on chat. What do you think about this?" It's because we genuinely wanna know.
Yeah,
So
and I was thinking about it because we could probably a way to better facilitate that, and we kind of do it in my intro where I talk about the discussion topic. But yeah, just be like, hey, put your stuff in the comments and we'll talk about it, and still kind of have a live listener Q&A ish section, because like I
mhm,
said, if we just sit here with this up the entire time, then it becomes a TikTok live, and that's not something
right,
necessarily we want.
because
But
you know
when,
what? A good
yeah,
amount of people that hang out with us,
hmm,
they're busy doing stuff in, like, their own
yeah,
lives. Like Ashley,
yeah,
she generally tunes in when she's at work.
yeah,
Otto is Central Time? Mountain Time?
Mountain Time. He's
Mountain
in,
Time.
yeah, he's in
So,
Utah.
he's probably making his first cup of coffee while he's listening to us. And I've even done it, like, for lives, right? For your lives, where I might not necessarily be watching, but I hear what's going on because, like, I gotta get something done around the apartment or whatever. So
Yeah,
that's where a brunt of that is too. So I understand, like, not so many comments, but we'll see how we could get a little bit
more
more,
involved.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I
viewer
and like, and I think that's going to be the challenge, is kind of making sure it doesn't turn into a TikTok live chat, because that's not what it is,
right.
because that's not what we're doing with the
All
podcast.
right, well,
But
challenge
it's,
accepted. You
yeah,
and I
exactly.
never backed down from one before, so
No, well, and it can be like what we just did right now when we're actually going into the discussion portion of it, having the chat up so they feel like they are interacting, something like
Hmm.
that. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I think we need to step more towards a less, not destructuring, because obviously an organized, organic talk show. Make
Yeah,
it an actual talk show where
exactly, exactly.
it's not as rigid. And like I said, it was good for starting because it kept the three of us at the start on track, basically. It kept us, it let us know how we wanted to do this, and it presented to the folks who are watching and listening on the different platforms, that every week you can expect we're talking about aviation, we're talking about gaming in this order, so they knew what to expect. But to me, that I love podcasts are like that. But to most people, that's not necessarily what they want to hear. I actually just started watching. It's called Clueless Podcast. It's three of my favorite gamers, or four, excuse me. Puffer, Joyd, Grizzy, and Pezzy started doing a podcast. They're down in Texas. Difference is they live right next to, or they live in the same town, so they can do it. They record together, which is a different dynamic. But their topics, and that's just because of years of them playing games together. They kind of jump from topic to topic, but it's like you said, it's a very organic talk show. It's they're just talking about stuff.
Right, but
Uh,
you know what? If we were in the same town, right, and we met at the local diner, or one week my living room, one week your living room, to do it, to change topics like that is way easier of a conversation to move forward organically than it would be me sitting in my living room and you in your
yeah.
living room halfway across the country.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'm saying
It's a little
it's
bit
also.
easier.
And also a lot of times, like I found with like their first episode, um, it kind of lost me because of how random it was. It's like, okay, so what are we talking about? And I think their fourth episode just dropped, and it's a lot better. You can see them dialing into their format where it's becoming a little more consistent about what they're talking about, or staying on topic. It's not as, distracted and jumping around. So that's where, like, I think we would succeed is, rather than being super rigid OCD about, the segments and stuff, is just taking it to a level where we're talking and about stuff more as a conversation, less presenting, more conversation.
Hmm.
I think that just
Exactly.
summarizes it. Is less presenting, more
Exactly.
conversation, and I feel like that would be more entertaining as a talk show, for those watching.
Right, because
But
there was a lot to learn in a year.
yeah, we did.
Every
There was
episode
this
you learn
steep
something
learning
new and
curve.
new and new, newer and
Yep.
newer, and then like when we decided, well, last week when we were talking about pre-show, like, do we crush it all together? And I believe
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, yeah, that would be a mistake.
Okay,
But
so to
let's,
put okay, time out. Hold on. Let's put it in context.
yeah.
So, okay, before it sounds like we were about ready to just completely end the show on you, on you all. It's not what happened. So last week in the pre-show, I talked to Tommy because we had the week before. I woke up with a really bad headache, and it was probably because all the video editing I had been doing the night before. So I couldn't do the podcast. We had to kind of stop that one and move it to the next week. And in the last week's pre-show, I said, what's the plan? Like, what do we want to do? Because it was basically an open forum for us to be like, we should, do we want to continue as is? Do we have improvements? I think I suggested taking a break until next year to kind
Mhm.
of regroup, because Tommy still has stuff going on. I have captain training coming up. It's going to be, I think, honestly, the quality of the show would suffer because of real world things that we're doing that we
Right.
have to do. That we don't have a choice. And I said, one of the options, I said, or we can crush it, right? Because I want to give the top opportunity, because the last thing I would want is Tommy to do the show because he thinks he can't back out of it, because that's not it, so that's why I wanted to, that was an option, because that is an option if any point it ever gets overwhelming. It is an option to end the show, but we would have to, I would do it properly. I wouldn't do it abruptly. We would have a
Right.
final
Closure.
episode. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't, like, we just up and disappear. So that's where that came from. We weren't just gonna randomly squash the show and be like, "Yep, this is the last episode."
Right.
It
See you
was
guys.
more of a see ya. It was more of just a discussion of that was it, there's always an option to end the show. It's just being able to communicate that with one another is important, because if it does need to come to that point, we want it to end not like it did with Justin, where it was just up and implode everything and walk away and not look at the explosion that was created by it. More of where we could quietly and gracefully bow out and explain this is the last episode.
Right.
But
Which, and you see, perfect example because I knew you were going to react when I said that. And there you go. There is an example of how we want this to go.
yeah, but also keeping it like still organized to a sense because
Yeah.
I've
Oh, yeah.
listened to
Well,
I've
it
listened to
has to be.
podcasts that it's where it's the bouncing back and forth, and I can't the talking just to hear yourself kind of talk type of deal. It like
That
gives me
hurts
a
my
headache.
brain as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. So we have the basis. We know what we can talk about, and we know we're going to talk about aviation, cars, and gaming,
Hmm.
and
Or
safety if
staples.
it or staples. Yeah, and then we'll talk about in the discussion topic too. Once I, if I heard correctly, we're talking about getting the audience more involved live while
Hmm.
we're doing our discussion topics. But I also want to build off and come up. I personally want to come up with more creative discussion topics. Not necessarily stuff that's, there's important things that we should use this platform to talk about. Um, but other than that, like fun stuff, like the Halloween movie stuff, or if you had a superpower, what would it be? Like the more
Oh,
fun discussion, the entertainment, yeah, the entertainment
jot
stuff. So
jot that one down.
it's already down.
If you had it, all right,
It's
cool.
been in my book, yeah. So
So
it's
that
just
could
like,
be, season 2, episode 2, or something.
yeah,
Yeah, because
bouncing
I
because I
think this
felt.
AI thing is going to be hysterical.
Yeah, it is, and I also felt like at the back of this series or this season, if you will, things have begun a more serious tone with the podcast, and that's just because we have more. There's been important messages to get out, which I think is important as a podcaster. Stuff like, for example, was it gatekeep mentor or gatekeeper? I talked
Hmm.
about the alarming trend on social media where people in positions and career positions like myself as an airline pilot who have the opportunity to help those asking questions turn around and charge them for it. I don't agree with, or glorifying darkness, the Joseph Emerson story on Hulu that we talked about, where the Times, New York
Hmm.
Times, did a documentary where, in my opinion, rather than glorifying a criminal, well, they glorified a criminal versus what
Yeah,
they were
that's what
trying
they
to get
did. They
out of
gave
it.
him a
That
sounding board and they gave him a job while he wasn't out earning. My
yeah,
opinion.
exactly. Yeah.
You
So
know,
that's why it's a more serious tone. So I'd like to try to focus on next year, focusing on making sure that that we're intermixing some more lighthearted
yeah,
discussions, because some of my
absolutely.
favorite episodes are not only the history ones like antitrust, but like to jingle or not to jingle, or the green striped sweater, or the striped sweater, excuse me, or have I gone daffy, where we talked about the Nightmare
Mm.
Before Christmas. That was one of my all-time favorite episodes. Episode 5 was also my favorite because gray matter is mental health is an important thing, but that once again was the start of using the platform or our podcast as a platform to talk about more serious
Right. Yeah,
things.
definitely a little bit more lighthearted stuff, a little bit more, not like, Dean Martin celebrity roast stuff, but yeah, a
No,
lot
but
more
just
lighthearted. But you know what though? If
lighthearted.
you look back, like some of these things that evolved, maybe let's call it like the last 6 episodes, like there's just been a lot of serious stuff going on,
That we had to talk about.
and then
Yeah.
with the joking and all that, like the one thing that I pride myself on is our podcast isn't like anyone else's out there. We're very unique. And
Yeah.
and it's not like you and I are trying to become famous. We're a
No.
couple of friends that just kind of hang out and do this and you got your job, I got my job, and then this is what we're doing after the show type thing.
Yeah.
And so that little bit of structure, organic, maybe more viewer interaction and a little bit less seriousness is exactly where
We
I
need
was
to
going. And when I say a little
go.
bit, I'm not saying like we're boring now. I mean, we're talking about, you know, legitimate things in the world right this very
Yeah.
second.
Important
But
things.
you and I
Yeah.
also have a hell of a sense of humor, and people got to know that.
Yeah. I
Like if
agree.
they didn't pick up on it by some of our jargon in the jiffy ribbing.
Yes. So yeah, and yeah, Jargon and Jeffrey's still in there. But we just got to figure out a way to work it in a little more organically. But with that being said, we are kind of approaching the over the hour mark here.
Yep.
So I do want to thank you all for watching, and those of you that joined this morning, Lando, for joining us celebrating our 1 year anniversary with Torque and Thrust Talk Show. 31 episodes, and as you saw in the highlight, a lot of change since the very first episode. Want to shout out huge to our moderators from the Three Green Simulations group, Snowy Pine Trees, Lando, who was in our chat. We have Raging Brit, Ashley, K-Bird. Actually, K-Bird's not a moderator, but he's here
He's
all the
not a
time.
mod, no.
No, he's
But
not a
he
mod.
is here.
Franco, who's another huge supporter out in New Jersey, who drives trucks and listens to us while he's working, and also has a lot of great commentary and input. It makes our show entertaining as well. Our show would not be anything without our listeners. In fact, last winter, Tommy and I were the one of the top 60 aviation podcasts in the world, I believe, according to Apple Podcasts.
Hmm.
So it's we honestly couldn't do it without you. So I know it's gonna suck for the next couple of months, not having Tommy and I around weekly presenting. But just keeping a lookout on YouTube, Twitch, on TikTok, also on our Twitter at Torque and Thrust TS, or Torque and Thrust Talk Show. We'll be announcing, once I get my January schedule mid-December, we'll be announcing our first day back in January 2025 for the new season of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. So make sure you guys don't
Yep.
go anywhere. Make sure to follow Tommy at Level Flight Simulations, and I am Captain Bill Official on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch, because we're gonna slow game. I'm still producing weekly content for YouTube. My gaming content, I'm trying to produce one video that comes out the Friday of every week. New one's coming out this Friday, about being a superhero soda can from Japan. Yep.
That was a mouthful.
It's
It really was.
it's a good video. I was having a lot of fun editing that video, so definitely check that out. That drops this Friday at midnight Central Time on YouTube as well. But yeah, definitely don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We will be back come January 2025.
We'll be back, and we will be better.
Yeah, we will be absolutely better. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying with us for this year. And on behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I am Bill.
I am Tommy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and we will see you next year.
Stories of the brave unfold. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. From the highways to the flight path, through the storms we'll share a laugh. Tales of courage, dreams in flight, guiding you through day and night. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. In the heart of every journey, there's a story to be told. With the wind beneath our wings, we'll watch the world unfold. Torque and thrust, feel the rush. Every turn and every gust. With Captain Bill and Tommy too. Adventures waiting just for you. So tune in, take a ride. Let's explore the world wide. With Torque and thrust, we'll go far. Chasing dreams